Hey everyone, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today it's going to be Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth for the Nintendo Wii. This is a 2009 Wiiware title that is sort of a remake of the classic Castlevania Adventure for the Game Boy. It's sort of loosely based around it anyway. It features a lot of the same enemies and some of the same tunes, couple of the same mechanics and whatnot, but for the most part it's actually a brand new game, and it feels a little more like a more traditional Castlevania game than even the Game Boy games were. I mean, technically the Game Boy games were traditional Castlevania games. They are linear-Vanias, not Metroidvanias. They're not non-linear adventures, but they were very sluggish. They didn't have as much going on in terms of action. A lot of times you're only fighting one or two enemies at once at a time. This game is definitely faster paced. It's got a lot more going on. Graphics and sound are obviously a lot better, and it definitely offers up a more genuine challenge, whereas a lot of the challenge came from the Game Boy. A lot of the challenge in the Game Boy ones came from just sort of poor stage design, super tight platforms that were difficult to manage, and just other things like massive amounts of slowdown and whatnot. The challenge in this game comes from solid enemy placement and trap placement and things like that, more akin to stuff like Super Castlevania 4 or Castlevania Bloodlines and whatnot. I wouldn't say this game is as good as any of those top tier Castlevania games, but it is still a worthwhile adventure that I recommend you try to play through if possible, if you're a big Castlevania fan like I am. Not the best. It's definitely not the worst. And I think it's actually better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. Although, honestly, in doing practice sessions for this video over the last couple of weeks, I did find it difficult to really get into it again in the beginning. I actually did a Let's Play on this about 5 years ago, and I haven't played it much since then, and so when I fired it up again, something about it just didn't really resonate with me. It wasn't until, the third or fourth playthrough where it really just started to click with me again, and I started to really get into it and really enjoy it. So I do think it is a good Castlevania game that I definitely recommend playing if you can. Unfortunately, you can't buy it anymore because Nintendo's Wii Shop has basically been discontinued, but if you hack a Wii, if you put the homebrew channel on it, or if you emulate the Wii, you should be able to play it via those means, if you really want to and you don't have access to it. But yeah, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the whole game. We're gonna play all 6 stages. You've got 2 bosses per stage. Some bosses have different routes with alternate mini bosses, but generally you fight 2 bosses per stage. And I'll just sort of explain, some techniques, some tips, some strategies, assuming I play well. I am very tired today. I'm very drowsy. This is actually the 5th time I've tried recording this video. Been spending the last couple of hours at it, so I haven't been playing very well today, but we'll just kind of see what happens. Maybe those warm-up sessions will help me. So, but before we jump into it and I start playing and explaining things, as usual, I'd like to give a big shout out to my current Patreon backers. So they're going to go ahead and flash by the screen. Thank you guys for supporting my channel via Patreon, and thank you to all the recent live stream super chatters as well and the channel members. So they're going to flash by the screen too. I've got live streams on a weekly basis, so if you're around and you're bored, feel free to check those out, drop in and say hello. So let's go ahead and hit the button here to jump in. Let's go to the options menu. And one thing I want to change is change my player style from classic to normal. So normal is the default. So let's actually just go down here and go to default settings. So we're going to play on the normal difficulty mode. There is an easy mode. There is a hard mode. We're not going to put those on easy or hard. And we're going to leave the player style on normal. Normal player style basically means when you jump in the air, you can control your jump in midair. When you have it on classic, you cannot. And that actually really screws me up, not being able to control my jump in midair. One thing that classic jumping does is not only can you not control your jump midair, you have to commit to your jumps, which makes, judging where you're going with your jumps a little more difficult. This game has a really weird mechanic where, like, when you bump the ceiling, you kind of like stop in place And if you have it on the classic style, you stop in place and you fall straight down, which is really, really clunky, and the game is just not designed around that. Whereas with normal play style, you'll jump up, hit your head on the ceiling, and you'll fall down, but because you can control yourself midair, you can still push yourself forward a little bit, which makes the, bumping your head in the ceiling feel a lot better than it does with the classic mechanic. This will just stop you dead in your tracks, and it's really a flow stopper. And I don't recommend playing on classic until you're good at this game. Play it on normal. Don't play it on classic. The game just really doesn't feel like it's been designed around the classic jumping style, to be honest with you. But it's there, for fans of the classic series. You do have screen adjustments. You've got controller settings. And this game does have support for various classic controllers and whatnot. I've got a Classic Controller Pro I use with it. But I also have the NES and Super NES classic controllers from Nintendo's plug-and-play consoles. They work great for this game. We're going to actually just use the standard Wiimote on this playthrough, though. It's not tethered to anything, and it just feels really natural for this game. I've always played this game with the Wiimote for the most part, so it just feels the most natural for some reason when I play this. The only thing is it relies on, buttons 1 and 2, which one of them is actually mapped to the B button on the back of the Wiimote. And so when you're using the D-pad, you just have to watch out for accidentally tapping the B button on the back, which will actually make you attack or jump or something like that. So that is something you have to watch out for. But other than that, it's actually really comfortable. I like using the Wiimote for these old school types of games. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. And yes, we will save our settings, and here we go. So there's going to be a little bit of an introduction that plays out. Nothing too crazy here. It's got some flashbacks from older Castlevania games, and nothing too terribly involved. What I actually found kind of interesting is I believe M2 did, these Rebirth games for Konami back in the day. And this was actually before I really knew who M2 was. And M2's done a lot of emulation efforts in modern years. And they just do fantastic work. And they've done lots of emulation packages, for other companies and other port jobs for companies back in the day. Say in the PlayStation 2 era with lots of, some Sega Ages titles. So really good stuff, and they did a pretty good job, making basically brand new games based around old Konami franchises here. So here we go, Castlevania Adventure Rebirth. Again, like I said, it's a throwback to classic Castlevania The Adventure for the Game Boy, and Adventure 2, which was called Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge. Not my favorite Castlevania games out there. I do have a soft spot for them. But honestly, I don't think they're the best games to revisit in this day and age. I don't think they've aged terribly well. And I really think this game is, compared to them, comparatively, it's a lot of fun. So you do get a, one main whip upgrade, and then you're maxed out. But you can upgrade the whip one step further for a fire whip, which basically shoots out a fireball like so. This fireball mechanic was actually in the original Castlevania Adventure games for Game Boy. However, the mechanic's been changed a little bit here. In this one, the fireball does not go all the way across the screen, which is kind of a bummer. Also, you can come down here and grab a secret. You do get some extra lives from points, so it's good to try to get money bags when you see them. And I think 40,000 points is our first extra life, so we want to watch out for that. But yeah, the fireball mechanic in the original games, it would go all the way across the screen. Also, the fireball in this game is timed, so it's timed by that green meter right below my health bar, which is kind of irritating, to be honest with you. In the original games, you would basically, you would get the fireball, it would be permanent until you lost it, and so if you took a hit, you would lose it. So it would basically reward you for not taking a hit when you had the fireball. But in this, if you take a hit, you still lose it, but it's timed. So you're going to lose it either way, it's just a matter of when you're going to lose it. Whereas in the Game Boy games, you could pretty much just keep them for the whole playthrough if you were good, and you don't really have that in this game, unfortunately. So that is one thing that is kind of a little bit of an irritating change as someone that has played a lot of the original Game Boy Castlevania games. So this is our first boss here. This is the Bat. And what we're going to do is we're just going to sit up here like so. And what he's going to do is he's going to dive backwards and then sort of make an air dash like that, or do an air dash like that. We can use our sub-weapons if you want. Using sub-weapons in this is just like in the original Castlevania games for the NES, where you hold up and attack to use them. But notice how I can actually control my jump mid-air, kind of like this. It's actually really handy for bosses like this, where you have to, you know, actually jump and control your jump. We also just picked up an axe. The axe is my favorite sub-weapon in this game. I find it to be just the most useful in general. There are a lot of enemies in this game that are placed above you, and even there are enemies that are placed below you, and with the right aim of your axe, it can go down below the floor and smack an enemy down below you, which is actually quite nice as well. The cross I don't actually enjoy as much as I do in other Castlevania games, because it doesn't go as far across the screen as it does in other Castlevania games. There are some odd design choices in this game. You can actually jump across here as well. It's a little bit of a shortcut. Yeah, there's some odd design changes in this game compared to other Castlevania games, which can be a little grating if you're really used to other Castlevania games, as I am. So let's go ahead and get this money right here, and just wait for the bird to come down. The birds always loop around, and they always dive bomb you. So they're actually very easy to deal with in this game as long as you're patient. The second you see a bird start whipping around, just stand in place, watch it spin around you, and then wait for it to just dive bomb you. And then you can just smack it in the face. One other thing that's really interesting about this game is that the hitbox on your whip is actually quite large, and it'll actually do damage from behind you and above you, slightly above you, above your head. That's extremely handy, particularly for later on in the game. The final boss in particular, you have a lot of objects that sort of fall down on top of your head, and you can just, you don't even have to jump to whip them. You can just, you can basically just stand in place and just whip right as they hit you in the head, and you'll end up destroying the objects that are going to cause you damage. And we're going to come down here because there's some wall meat right here. Grab that heart above. And there's actually a holy water right there, which I don't want. I want to hold on to the axe as long as I can. We are going to lose the axe because there is, you know, an alternate route or two we're going to take. There are a bunch of alternate routes in this game, which is neat. Unfortunately, the key mechanic to get to said alternate routes is probably not implemented the best, because there are locked doors in this game. You can get hidden keys to unlock these locked doors. Some of these locked doors give you alternate routes, others just give you small little, you know, item stashes. You know, you get some money bags, you get some hearts, nothing too terribly special. So, you know, the keys aren't always put to great use in this game, but they are necessary for certain alternate routes. One of the alternate routes is going to be on this level, actually. And we're going to go ahead and just smack this guy from a distance, just like so. And unfortunately, I am out of hearts right now. So one of the changes in this game as well is how your ammunition is handled. And, you know, you still use hearts, you know, to use your sub-weapons in this game, but all sub-weapons have pretty much been doubled in the amount of ammo that they require to use them. So, you know, whereas in other Castlevania games you'd use an axe, and that axe would, you know, maybe use up 1 heart. In this game, it uses up 2 hearts. And so you've got a lot less ammo to go around on your sub-weapons, which is unfortunate. Go ahead and hit that to get some money. So the money doesn't really do anything outside of points. It's really just for score. But again, you do get points from them, and those points can equate to extra lives, which if you're having troubles with the game, it's good to get those extra lives. One of the most frustrating things about this game is the limited amount of lives that you get to start off with. And the levels are actually fairly long in this game. You know, they can take upwards of 10 minutes to get through. And, you know, with only starting with 2 lives, you know, it's very easy to get a game over and have to do the entire stage over again, because there aren't any checkpoints once you get a game over. You go all the way back to the very beginning of the stage. So, you know, you can really take advantage of this relatively large hitbox on this whip. So enemies will be placed slightly above you on higher platforms like that. And you can just jump up them, hit their feet with the top of your whip, and you'll actually do damage to them. And it's actually very, very useful. So you'll see me doing that a lot over the course of the playthrough. And let's walk up here. There's a cross. And we're just going to jump down here like so. Now, there is a key here you can grab, which will take you to an alternate route. We're not going to do that because there's an axe I'd like to pick up, if at all possible. And if I take the alternate route, I don't think I'm going to get the axe. So we're not going to grab that key. We're going to go ahead and just take this route. And we got some holy water. And actually the key is necessary to go through that door, so we're not going to worry about that. But we can just sort of come down here, like that, which takes us through here. So, if you're watching closely, you'll notice that I'm actually using the top of my whip to kill certain enemies, and I'm using the back of my whip to kill certain enemies as well, without having to turn around. So it's definitely a very useful mechanic. See, like that, I hit that with the back of my whip, I didn't have to turn around to attack it. And that takes some getting used to. It takes a lot of getting used to, actually. But once you get into the groove of just smacking enemies with the backside of your whip, it's really satisfying. Now, don't play another Castlevania game immediately after playing this game, because it will screw you up. You will try to do that in other Castlevania games, and while it works sometimes in other Castlevania games, it can be very inconsistent. It's very, very reliable in this game. And let's actually go up this top route. I don't want to get knocked down to my death. And we'll just fall on this platform. And we'll go ahead and come up here like so. And there's another key! Let's skip it. I'm not going to worry about it. And we're just going to fall straight down here. Let's actually come over to the left. For absolutely nothing. Oh, no, wall meat. And there we go. We got our fireball again. Which again, not, you know, it's mildly useful. It's not the most useful thing in the game because, you know, it goes across the screen relatively slow. It's relatively weak compared to your main whip. Your main physical whip is actually a lot more powerful than the fireball is. It's probably about twice as powerful, maybe even 3 times as powerful, to be honest with you. And so this is a mini-boss that's actually one of the alternate mini-bosses that you don't always go to. We're just going to keep smacking him in the face like this. And his weak spot is that red orb. And the red orb will either come out on the bottom, near the floor, or it'll come out a little bit higher. And in order to hit it when it's higher, you have to be standing to whip him. And same when it comes out on the floor. So this boss can actually be a little tricky. There we go. Bam, just like that. You do a lot of damage when you attack him, but you only have a split second to hit his weak spot when it pops out. And one of the problems with that boss fight is if you're standing, it takes a few frames to duck to try to hit it, and by the time you duck and hit the button to whip, you know, the weak spot's already gone back inside him. And, you know, same if you're ducking. You try to stand and then whip, you're just not fast enough to do it. So you really just have to kind of be in the right spot when it comes out. Otherwise, you know, you're probably not going to actually do any damage to him. And we can go ahead and just use the axe up here like so. Yeah, so again, the axe to me is the most useful sub-weapon in the game. And so my goal when I play this is generally to keep the axe if at all possible. You know, you can cut through multiple enemies with one shot, which is fantastic. Let's go ahead and try to get as many hearts as I can. Yeah, so one of the biggest issues with this game, though, is how your sub-weapons use more sub-weapon energy than in other Castlevania games. So I had to be very selective about when I use my hearts in this game. So I generally try to save my my hearts for boss fights, or very specific moments where, say, using an axe from down below is the most, you know, beneficial move. There's going to be some wall meat up here, and I really don't want that cross, so I'm not going to get it. And let's just see if we can let it disappear. I feel like I'm going to jump and touch it, and I don't want to pick it up accidentally. And there we go. So you'll notice in this game that there are multiple colored candles. They don't really seem to have any rhythm or rhyme to them, to be honest with you. There are blue candles, green candles, red candles. I haven't been able to figure out if there's anything special to them, like there is in some other Castlevania games. Say in Castlevania Bloodlines you have multiple candle types. One candle type gives you sub-weapons, the other candle type gives you hearts or money, and that's it. But in this game, it doesn't really seem like there's any rhythm or rhyme to it. So the trick of this boss is trying to use an axe when he jumps up to the ceiling and throws rocks at you. Also, when he turns into his small form, he'll jump against the wall, then sort of dive bomb you at a 45-degree angle. And for that, you just want to walk in the opposite direction. He'll slide on the floor, and then he'll start spinning around when he's in his small form. And you can just smack him with your whip, and you'll push him backwards. It's not really a very difficult boss fight, but he is very aggressive. He's very fast. And, you know, the first time I got to that boss fight, it really threw me off. Go ahead and kill that guy from up above. We're just going to skip this. The backing tune on this level is great. It is from Castlevania The Adventure 2, or I should say Castlevania 2. I don't even think they call it Castlevania Adventure 2. It's just Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge for the Nintendo Game Boy. It's the sequel to Castlevania The Adventure. So, you know, one of the things that it really can't be argued, in my opinion, with the Game Boy Castlevania games is they do have great soundtracks. It's, you know, very memorable soundtracks, very good stuff. So even though the games themselves might not be that great, you know, the music is fantastic in them, and still I think holds up pretty well. So it was really great for them to, you know, revisit some of those tunes in this game. I do wish that they used more of those tunes in this game, instead of relying on other classic Castlevania tunes. Oops, and I just picked up the dagger. I did not want the dagger, so let's hope we can try to get ourselves another axe here. So I'm going to try to whip every sub-weapon candle now, or every candle. Let's go ahead and get that key, see what that does. I actually do not know all the key locations in this game, and that is something I'd probably like to try to figure out eventually. In my practice sessions for this this video, I have figured out some different routes that I haven't been to before, which has been nice. You know, seeing other parts of the game that I didn't even know existed. So that's always a cool thing. But yeah, there are still a bunch of other places to go to that I haven't quite figured out yet, so. But yeah, one of the things I kind of wish they did with this game, though, in regards to the music, is use more of the Game Boy game's soundtrack. And actually, this is where you would use the key. I'm a dummy. I already knew that. So yeah, there's that hidden wall right there you can bust through. Hidden passageway you can bust into. Let's go ahead and use the stopwatch here. And there's the axe. Good, so we got our axe back. And I really, really want to keep the axe for the boss fight on this stage. Otherwise, the boss fight is just a real pain to deal with. But look at how weak the fireball is. It only takes 2 hits to kill those guys with my regular whip. So the fireball is also a little underwhelming in this game. And it's one of the things I kind of wish they tweaked or changed. You know, maybe make it like the Game Boy games where the fireball's permanent until you take a hit. So it can sort of, you know, reward you for not taking damage. But it doesn't, unfortunately. The fireball whip will go away if you take a hit in this game. But, you know, again, like I said earlier, it's going to end either way. You know, it's going to go away no matter what. So there's really no point in keeping the fireball outside of, you know, maybe 1 or 2 key moments where it really makes life easier. But for the most part, you've usually got the tools at your disposal to get through parts without, you know, to get through parts unscathed. And we're going to come down from the left-hand side here because there's going to be some wall meat. And I definitely want that, because I'm taking damage left and right now. There we go. And let's try to jump on these platforms. Come down like so, just like that. And this is going to be a mini-boss fight. And it's going to be a bone dragon. Oops, not quite yet. We've got to go through this section first. And I just grabbed a cross. I'm an idiot. I wasn't paying attention. Alright, I don't think we get another axe. Let's hope we do, but I don't think I'm going to. So that's going to make this boss fight, not really harder. It's just going to make the boss fight a lot more tedious. And let's see what this candle is up here. It's just some money. Or some points. And that's a big heart, which is good. And let's see what we got up top here. I don't have all these, you know, candles memorized and whatnot. And that's okay. Not a big deal. But it is really good to have certain candles memorized, you know, like this candle drops an axe, or this candle drops a cross or something like that, or this gives me a key which allows me to go to, you know, an alternate area, which is very useful if you want to try to see other parts of the game. Alright, so now he's going to slither his way down, like so, and we can just smack him in the face like that. He doesn't actually have a lot of health. Like, you do a lot of damage to him when you whip him. And we just got ourselves a dagger, and then there's our fireball whip again. And this thing right here, you can actually whip it and destroy it. And there is going to be some wall meat up here as well. You want to just smack that wall right there. And let's see if we can just attack this guy like so, just like that. There we go, there's an axe. Great. Alright, back in business. We're gonna skip that money bag that just fell down. One other thing you have to worry about in this game is the timer. Now, having a timer is very typical for the Castlevania series, but in this game, you are actually very tight for time on certain stages, so you really want to book it when you're playing this game. It's fun trying to explore and seeing what's in all the, you know, the candles, but, you know, if you're trying to get through this without dying, or something like that, you know, you want to try to get through these stages as quickly as possible. I have run out of time in this multiple times, and that doesn't usually happen for me ever in a Castlevania game. It's just this Castlevania game. There is actually one specific part in Super Castlevania 4 where I oftentimes run out of time, or not run out of time, but I get very, very close to running out of time. It's going to be a cross right here. I don't want that. I want this axe, otherwise this boss is just very, very tedious. So this guy has a tendency of just sort of hovering up towards the top of the screen, which is why I want the axe. And we're going to go ahead and just pummel him with the axe like crazy. I have a lot of hearts built up, actually, which is nice. And that is why we want the axe for this boss fight. Alright, on to stage 4. And we can actually axe up here to get 5,000 points. So these red sort of pole knights here, they actually will attack you. Whereas I think the gray pole armor knights don't really attack, they just sort of sit there and hobble around like idiots. And let's go ahead and just axe those guys. But yeah, the red ones are actually quite dangerous, so I like to try to, you know, attack them with projectiles from a distance. So like right now I can use an axe for that guy from the top, and I could probably use another axe right here to finish him off just like that. And we're just gonna try to fall down and, well, I was gonna say try to fall down and smack that guy as I fall down. But it's a little bit harder to do that in this game than it is in other Castlevanias. Also, these skeletons walk really fast in this game compared to other Castlevanias. Like the red skeletons in particular. Red skeletons in Castlevania games usually walk really, really slow. But they walk pretty fast in this game. And, you know, when you're trying to fall down and not touch them, it can be difficult to do that in this game. So there are definitely some mechanics that are a little bit different in this compared to other Castlevanias. A lot of mechanics in Castlevania games are very consistent from game to game. So red skeletons usually move really slow in Castlevania games. In this game, that's not the case. They actually move relatively quickly. So again, when you're trying to fall down, you might actually just land right on top of them. And it happens a lot more often than you would think, or hope, for that matter. So we got the Medusa heads. Medusa heads are interesting, and a trick with the Medusa heads in this game is they have a tendency of appearing the way you are facing. So if you want to control the way the Medusa head comes in, or what side of the screen it comes in, as long as you're, I think it's as long as you're, you know, relatively close to the middle of the screen, the Medusa heads will come in whichever way you're facing. So I just face to the right, and there it is. It comes in from the right, just like so. Now again, I need to play it relatively, at a relatively brisk pace here, because I don't want to run out of time. So I do have a tendency of kind of getting into, you know, sort of an OCD mindset when I play this game. I try to whip every candle, I try to attack every enemy, because enemies do give you points, and points equate to extra lives, which can be good. But, you know, the more you do that, the more likely, you know, you're gonna run out of time by the time you reach, you know, by the time you get close to the end of the stage. And there's a key. I do not want the key because, you know, yeah, you can get to an alternate route with the key, but I lose my axe. I don't want to lose my axe. So there's something interesting here. Is this is actually a maze portion, which I'm going to try to explain. Let's actually kill some of these guys just to get some points. Just like so. But, yeah, you gotta go a very specific route. What we're gonna do is actually just go back through this door. Instead of going down that bottom door, we're gonna go ahead and just go through this top door, which takes us to this alternate room, which obviously is not where we came from, because it's totally different from where we came from. You gotta watch out for those candelabras up top, or those chandeliers. And we end up here. And there's gonna be, you know, a cross, which we don't want. There's an extra life right here. And we go through here, and there's a key, which we don't want either. So if you want to get to the alternate route in this level, you need to get both keys in this section and open up the dual locked doors on that first screen. But here we go, this is pretty much it. So we go back, we come down this bottom route, try to kill this Peepinai right here. And now we fight a mini-boss fight. If you take the alternate route, you actually skip the mini-boss. And this is actually a pretty tricky mini-boss. She's probably one of the more challenging bosses in the game. And this right here, she does this attack that spins around like that. It's very difficult for me to read which direction it's going to go. And when she shoots a projectile into the ground, these little, you know, sort of ghosts come out and they pop up. And this is a great boss to have, you know, sub-weapon energy on, but unfortunately, I've been using my sub-weapons like crazy, and so I got to the boss without ammo. And this is one reason I like to play this game without using my sub-weapons that often. So I made the mistake of using my axe way too many times, and it made that boss fight a lot more difficult. So what I'm going to be doing is conserving my ammo for pretty much the rest of the stage. I'm just going to be using my whip if at all possible. And I do not want the cross. Again, the axe is my preferred sub-weapon for this game. And I was actually tempted to use my axe there, but I can just jump up and whip these guys. It's just all about being patient. If you don't want to use your sub-weapon energy, just be patient. Take your time. Not too much time, because you are timed. And even guys like that don't take that many hits. And we're slowly building up our sub-weapon energy. So there is going to be some wall meat up here very soon, so let's try to get through this without taking too many hits. Smack those birds. Remember, the birds always loop around and just dive bomb you from one side or the other. So they're actually pretty easy to deal with, but you've got to watch out for dealing with them while there are other enemies on the screen at the same time. Alright, and so for this part right here, you really want to just book it as fast as you can, because the bridge is going to start falling apart. Fortunately, you do get your fireball here, which can help you deal with, you know, some of these skeletons, like so. And sometimes what I do here is if I have enough time, I can just sit here and just attack these guys, because they give you points. Yeah, a decent chunk of points, but I'm not going to worry about that one. And let's just wait for him to come up. Now, it's actually one thing that's kind of interesting about this game is I believe this came out after Castlevania Order of Ecclesia for the Nintendo DS. There's some wall meat. And so you'll notice there are some very similar sound effects in this game to Order of Ecclesia, which is a fantastic game. Really, really great Castlevania game. If you guys haven't played it, highly, highly recommend playing it. It's one of the Metroidvanias. And so yeah, you'll find a similar sound effect package in this game. Some sound effects sound almost like they came straight from Ecclesia, which is kind of cool. So this guy is actually kind of tough to deal with at first. He basically does this pounding attack with his fist, and it's very difficult to tell if he's gonna, you know, punch close into him or far out, and that's what you really have to watch for. And let's see, he's gonna go far out, and I misjudged that. And basically I want to just sit here and attack these things, and then jump up here and hit him in the weak spot. You can hit him up to 7 times. And he's going to go out like that, and then in. So that was a good 6 hits, which is nice. And then he went out again, and I wasn't paying attention. You can also use your axe if you want. And what we're going to do is we're just going to try to finish him with the axe, to be honest with you. Because I really want to play this safe. Just like that. Oh, and I still took a hit there. Interesting. At least I didn't die. Now, I just don't want to die. You know, I'm probably going to die somewhere in this playthrough, but, you know, if I can do this without dying or dying as little as possible, I just feel better about the playthrough. A lot of my practice runs not really practice. They were actual Let's Play recording runs that I just really failed at. There's one time I even got a game over, and I was just like, okay, I'm redoing this Let's Play. Which actually really sucks, because sometimes when that happens, my commentary is actually pretty solid. I'm very happy with the commentary, you know. But my performance is bad. Like, my gameplay performance is bad. Like, the idea when I do these Let's Plays is to try to have a decent balance of both. But sometimes that's easier said than done when you're recording these videos. Talking and playing at the same time is definitely an acquired skill, and even after you're used to it, you can still struggle with it at times. And I definitely find myself struggling with it at times. So, this just gives you money right here. There's also going to be some holy water right there, which I don't really care about. Again, the axe is the best sub-weapon to me, and we're basically just going to try to keep that for, you know, pretty much the rest of the playthrough. So yeah, this is our last main stage in the game. It's a relatively long stage. It's got a lot of tricks and traps and whatnot. You also fight death at the very end of it. Not the hardest death fight out there. There are several patterns to it, which is nice. But it's not the hardest out there. It's not too tough to deal with. And that was actually really close. Almost landed on that that sickle, and that would have knocked me back potentially into that pit. And let's just let this peeping eye come down, just like that. But yeah, I'm not making up some of these names. These are actually called peeping eyes. And if you've ever wanted to know what the names are for some of these enemies, you can just play Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which has a bestiary, which, you know, will basically give you the enemy names, which is pretty cool. A lot of the Metroidvanias have bestiaries, and so you can, you know, you can see what all the enemies are. The DS versions in particular are great for that, because they have, you know, the second screen, which also often has, you know, enemy names when you're attacking enemies, which is nice. It will have enemy names and details and things like that. So yeah, here's some more music from another Castlevania game. Again, this Castlevania uses music from multiple Castlevania games. A lot of Castlevanias, they feature some music from older games, but they generally feature their own unique soundtrack built from the ground up just for that game. This game pretty much features, well, very little original music. It's mainly music from lots of other Castlevania games, including the Game Boy games. But it's got music from Castlevania Adventure 2, it's got music from Castlevania Bloodlines, it's got music from Castlevania 1, and this is a tune from Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, on the NES. So it's definitely quite a mixture in terms of the music. As much as I really like these tunes, I do wish that they just remixed as many classic Game Boy tunes as they could, because, you know, it's a fantastic soundtrack, and it would have been great to have those tunes in a more, you know, modernized form. And these ghosts just keep reappearing, and that gets kind of irritating. Let's go ahead and try to kill this skeleton from a distance. And I want to come down here and grab these hearts. There we go, hearts and money. So this red spinning gear or clock arm, kind of irritating to deal with. You need to fall down here and then just walk right past it, just like so. The problem with it is that you have Medusa heads to worry about. And this is going to be a mini boss fight. This is actually one of the more tricky boss fights in the game. We're going to get up and just pummel him as much as we can, just ducking at first. We're supposed to be able to duck under that. I don't know why that didn't work. Maybe I was just too close. But he does a ground-based attack as well. When he does that, you want to jump over it and then duck immediately. Ooh, that was close. And you want to just wait until he basically stops firing and just opens up. So we're just going to sit back here and just jump over like this, and then just wait. And then he'll just get bored and then start walking towards us again. And there we go. And he falls asleep. So these guys you want to hit twice as long as your whip is powered up, and then they'll fall over, and then when they fall over, you can hit them a few more times to finish them off. They will still hurt you. I thought that bone was going to actually go farther, and I think that's our first death. That's actually a really pathetic way to die as the first death, but, you know, it is what it is. We'll probably get through this playthrough without continuing, because we've got 5 lives, and, you know, we're getting towards the end of the game. But this is actually an example of some of the clunky, like, stage design, is you have a lot of, like, really short jumps here, and then you jump up, you hit your head, it just doesn't feel very good. Some of the level design in this, I just feel wasn't, like, very well thought out. It doesn't have that, like, really nice Castlevania flow that you're used to with other Castlevania games. And I think that's one of the things that keeps this game from being, you know, like a top-tier Castlevania game. Also, all the music, you know, I think having, you know, just the original Game Boy tunes remixed would have made it feel like it had its own identity, as opposed to being a mishmash of other Castlevania soundtracks. It's fantastic music. It's really, really great music, really great compositions, but it kind of like lacks its own identity, if you know what I mean. And it feels like it has its greatest form of identity on stage 3, where it uses, you know, one of the more aggressive tunes, one of the more, not aggressive, but one of the more energetic tunes from Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge on the Game Boy. And I really wish they just strictly used Castlevania Adventure music from parts 1 and part 2, as opposed to regurgitating stuff from Castlevania 3 and Bloodlines and, you know, Castlevania games that are pretty much unrelated. But it is what it is. This game is old now, so, you know, hindsight is 20/20, but I think these are things that could have made the game feel more like its own thing, and probably hold up a little bit better than some people usually feel. I do think it's a really solid game. Like I said in the beginning of the video, and I just lost my axe, unfortunately. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, I highly recommend playing this if you're a big Castlevania fan. It is a good game. I don't think it's as good as it could have been, but I do think it's better than a lot of people generally give it credit for. This is sort of an alternate route right here, and I messed it up, unfortunately. I'm an idiot. Now, if I killed myself, it might actually start me over there. But, and actually, I want to try something. Look at that. Okay, we didn't have to get it. I was basically able to smack into the spikes, and it boosted me up to that key. So, generally, you can't get that key unless you take that higher route. But it looks like you can sort of cheat the system. So basically what happens is, if you don't take that higher route at first, jump over before the elevator starts and get the key. The elevator goes up too fast for you to be able to walk over and get the key normally. Probably didn't really make any sense, but again, it looks like you can cheat the system, get hit by that set of spikes, and yeah, you can actually get the key. Which takes you up here. It's a slightly shorter route. You get an extra life. Slightly shorter route is actually good because, you know, you save time. And we got ourselves another axe. Let's go ahead and use said axe. And again, just like that. And I do need to try to save some hearts, though. Because I definitely want hearts for death. Because death is a fight where it's, you know, it's a little tricky to hit him with just your whip and still not take a hit. You know, it's one of those fights. So if I can try to pummel him from down below with my axe, that'll definitely help me. Plus, if you time the axe just right, it can do multiple hits, just like the cross can do multiple hits. And I just picked up the cross, funny enough. Let's see if we can get ourselves another axe here. And I'm not paying attention, but there is going to be some more wall meat, as long as we can play this relatively safe. And even if I don't play relatively safe, I mean, I've got 7 lives, which is actually a lot of lives in this game, to be honest with you. But I do still need to book it. We only have 3 minutes left, and we still have a whole other section to go through. And then we still have to fight the boss fight, too. Not really fight the boss fight, but, you know, fight the boss. Alright, we got some hearts. That's good. And so we're up to 33 hearts, which means we have a little over 15 uses on our sub-weapon. And we're just going to fall straight down like this. And we're going to try to jump up onto this pendulum. And one thing you can do as well is jump up here like that. And then just sort of walk over this way. A little bit of a shortcut. And there we go, we're good on time. There we go. I knew I was missing something. I was missing the wall meat, which I definitely needed. Alright, this is the last stretch, up to death. And there's an axe, great. Like I said, I don't have the candles for the most part memorized, and so when I lose an axe, I start to panic. So I'm like, uh-oh, I need that. And we're just gonna jump over this. So for this, you want to walk over to the right and hit him, or the left. I guess it doesn't really matter. There we go. Yeah, let's try this again. And he's going to do this attack here. I'm doing an absolutely terrible job at dodging his attacks. But basically what he does is this red line appears on the bottom of the screen. And that tells you where he's going to actually attack. Okay, well this is an absolutely terrible death boss fight. I'm doing a really bad job here. There we go. 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, there we go. That's it. You can actually run out of time before that orb drops. So you really want to make sure that you're pretty efficient with your level progression and your boss fight. But yeah, that wasn't a very good showing on that boss fight, but at least we did it without dying. So this is the last stretch of the game, guys. Only a couple more minutes to go. And this is the final boss. Let's see how we do here. Fortunately, I've got a head start on hearts. And I've got the axe, which is nice. And the fireball is pretty much useless on Dracula. I mean, it'll do some damage, but you'll see like the pattern I go by on Dracula. So having this fireball is not going to really do us any good. So what I do here is I smack Dracula in the face, and then hit his lowest fireball, and then jump up and smack him again.
As ever,
and that is basically the first form in a nutshell. There are 3 forms for Dracula in this game. Okay, so what we're going to do is just smack that fireball, hit him in the face, and we missed. And we missed again on that second hit. The timing is actually kind of strict here. So hit him like that, smack that, jump up, hit him. There we go. We got 2 hits. Oh, it didn't connect. The back of my whip has failed me. Alright, second form. Again, you gotta smack him in the head, but he spits out fireballs at a 45-degree angle and then does 3 jumps up like this. The third jump always sort of goes towards you. So one straight up, another straight up, and then another at a, you know, across the screen, like so. You can also get right up in front of him to duck his fireballs. So this pattern is actually a lot easier than it seems like at first. And I'm basically saving my axe for the second, or not the second form, we're on the second form. I'm saving my axe for the third form. Because the third form is by far the hardest. And there we go. Form number 3. Here we go. So the first half of this form, you just smack him in the jaw, and then you basically knock his jaw off. And then from then on, you can only hurt him by hitting his eyes. So I'm going to use just my my whip for this first part. Oops. When you see all those icons up top, it means these lightning bolts are going to strike down. And now what we have to do is actually hit him in the cheek, and it makes these platforms rise up. And you've got to watch out for these sort of like electrical balls. And if I wanted to, I could use the axe to hit him in the eyes to do some damage while I'm down on the floor. When he shoots fireballs down, you want to walk out of the way and then jump if you have to. There we go. Let's go ahead and use our axe to finish him off. There we go. And we just beat Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. Granted, on the normal difficulty. I still have to try to do hard mode sometime, and when we do that, I'll try to do an updated Let's Play down the road. But there we go. And that took us, you know, almost an hour to go through. It was probably about a 5-minute long intro. So that was about 50 minutes long. And, you know, it's a decently length Castlevania game. You know, some Castlevanias end a little bit shorter than that. But this one goes on for a good amount of time, which is actually interesting because it only has 6 stages. And the last stage is pretty much a non-stage. It really only has 5 main stages in the game, but they're very long. They have, you know, alternate routes, you know, splitting paths, you know, some various secrets to find with the whole key mechanic and whatnot. And yeah, it's longer than like it would, you know, initially lead you to believe. So, but yeah, overall, it's a good Castlevania game. If you can somehow get your hands on it, unfortunately, you can't really buy it anymore as of doing this video, but you know, you can still get it via quote-unquote other means, and if you're willing to do that, I think it's worth playing. Or if you have a friend that's got a Wii that's got this stuff on it already, you know, some of these Rebirth titles, I definitely recommend playing it that way. I recommend playing the other Rebirth titles too if you can, because they're pretty solid. There's Contra Rebirth and Gradius Rebirth. Both are pretty solid games that maybe we'll eventually do live streams or Let's Plays of eventually. But yeah, Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth is a solid game. I do enjoy it, and it was good revisiting it for this playthrough. I hope you guys, you know, if you're familiar with it, I hope you learned some tricks or tips or whatnot to help you get through it. You know, maybe if you have it, but you haven't put much time into it, maybe this will motivate you to fire it up again and give it another try. Like I said, I don't think it's the best Castlevania game out there, but it's far from the worst, and I think it's better than a lot of people give it credit for. I do recommend sinking some time into it. Once you get into the rhythm and flow of it, I think it's a lot of fun. So, But with that, guys, I am pretty much out of here. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to post them down below. If you're new to my channel, feel free to click that subscribe button. And I've got a lot of Let's Plays on here and many, many more planned for the future. So if you like this sort of format, definitely subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for what else I've got up my sleeve. For everyone else already subbed, thank you for your continued support. Hope you guys continue to enjoy these videos. And I guess until the next one, take it easy.